Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rabbi Jenny Greenspan here, Congregation Beth-El Zedek, for our weekly Shabbat morning Torah Talk. This week on Balotcha, which is one of my favorite Torah portions. Not that we should pick favorites, but this is one of my favorites. There's a lot going on in this week's Torah portion. Lots of places to focus and lots of lessons to be found. And I'm told also Cantor Melissa's bat mitzvah Torah portion and was the Torah portion for my Ufruf. So special familial connections to us here at Beth-El Zedek, at least to some of us here at Beth-El Zedek as well. So Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Good morning to the Seagulls, to Marty Lip, to Carol Steinfeld, and to the Scalairs. Shabbat Shalom to Jim Hammonds, even a little further today. Shabbat Shalom to Ellen Hamburger and Phyllis Luger. Good morning, everybody. Happy that you are here with me to take a look at this Torah portion. Shabbat Shalom, Alex Binder, too. So if you would like to follow along from a PDF of our Etz Chaim Chumash, as usual, it can be found on our website. Just go to bez613.org, select the virtual Shabbat resources, and scroll down to where it says Torah Talk, and next to it there's a link that says Etz Chaim, where you can grab a PDF of the Etz Chaim Chumash we would use inside our service. If you have a physical copy, always as on hand. As always, you can grab that right now, or any other copy of the Book of Numbers. So Shabbat Shalom and welcome. Welcome to Michael Kahn and to Renee Fout. Good Shabbos. Welcome, and let's dive in. This Torah portion has a lot to look at. As I mentioned, it is one of my favorites. There are so many different places we could be looking in this week's Torah portion. We could look at the fact that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, it is complete, it is moving around with them, and we are given the instructions for how to disassemble it, move it, and reassemble it. We have the fact that God is leading our people throughout the desert as is this form of a cloud that everybody can see. By day, it looks like a cloud, and by night, it has a fiery essence to it so that it can still be seen always over the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, or Ohel Moed, to kind of give a point of the central focus within the Israelite camp and to say that God is always with them and leading them and guiding them. We could focus on the fact that we have within a little bracketed section of the Torah, we have the verses that we use to open our Torah service every week, where it says, Vayehi bin soa ha'aron vayomer Moshe, kuma Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha. Might sound familiar if you'll hear it a little bit later on if you join us for the service as well. And those two, that verse, along with one that's used to close the Torah service, are bracketed in these little upside down nuns, even within the Torah, which means that some commentators say perhaps these two little verses are either out of place or were meant to be their own book entirely. And in fact, this week in one Torah portion, we're reading from 3 different books of the Torah, not just the Book of Numbers, like we might have thought. We could look at, which is what we will look at, the Israelites' complaints about the manna. We could look at the fact that Aaron and Miriam, Moses' siblings, seem to gossip about him in some way, and the dangers of Lashon Hara, the dangers of the evil tongue and the gossip. We could look at Miriam's illness following that incident, which some say was a consequence, others say it just happens. And Moses crying out to God, El na rafana la, please heal her. Look at the fact that, as I mentioned, our godly source of the little cloud / fire that follows around that leads around the tabernacle, while Miriam is sick and quarantines from her tzara'at, often translated as leprosy, the cloud doesn't go anywhere. The whole community holds back to take care of one of their leaders, their prophetess Miriam. We can look at the fact that God identifies Moses as the most humble. There are a lot of things to look at in this week's Torah portion. I highly encourage spending some time with it. If you have that PDF or have another form of the book, just find a friend and sit and read through it. There are lots of things to focus on. And this is one Torah portion I look back fondly upon my days in rabbinical school in Jerusalem. We studied this Torah portion in depth with my friend now, Rabbi Sidney Adler Rubinstein. So it's a good Torah portion to sit with a friend. But for the moment, I want to look at one particular little piece. If you are joining me in the Etz Chaim, I'm going to be on page 827. If you're joining in a different form of Chumash, I'm in Numbers chapter 11, and I'm going to look at starting at verse 4. We'll be most in depth on verse 6, but I'm going to start with verse 4. So these two, for context, we've now been told how the tabernacle will travel, and we have this notion of the ark traveling with them, of God leading the holiness around. And now we seem to have been out and wandering the desert a bit, and the people are bored and complaining, which the Israelites seem to do a fair amount throughout our Torah. And so let's start with verse 4. The riffraff in their midst felt a gluttonous craving. And then the Israelites wept and said, "If only we had meat to eat." We remember the fish we used to eat for free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Now our gullets are shriveled, and there is nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to. I want to take in a few things from these verses for just a moment. First, it seems in the Hebrew, the ha-safsuf, it's a fun word, ha-safsuf, the riffraff amongst them, a certain group within them, feels some kind of gluttonous craving, and suddenly all of the Israelites are complaining. This teaches us that our desires and our complaints can influence others, and that complaints and desires can multiply out, and stress and anxiety can multiply out. And so all of the Israelites come in saying, if only we had meat, if we only had fish we used to eat for free. This should raise a little bit of a flag. How would they, as slaves, have eaten for free in Egypt? They seem to be romanticizing what they used to have. Slaves we used to eat for free. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic. I've actually spoken on this verse a little bit in depth before. All of these foods coming from the ground, only looking in one place, desperately wanting what they used to have, and romanticizing a past that was probably not as joyful and free as they seem to be suggesting when they say the fish they used to eat for free. They were slaves. They were being given rations. And yet they're saying these foods that we used to eat for free. And then this is what I want to focus on today, this most painful kick of these few verses. Now our gullets are shriveled. There's nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to. If we remember, manna is this miraculous food source that God rains down through no effort of the Israelites. They don't need to plant and seed and toil and harvest and then take a wheat harvest and produce flour to produce bread. They don't have to do any of that. They just need to go out each day and collect the manna. The next few verses tell us about how wonderful the manna tasted. There are midrashim, rabbinic teachings that suggest that the manna could in fact taste like anything, and that it was the perfect form of sustenance, that it was exactly as much as one needed to eat in order to be maintained. And they say there's nothing here, nothing but this manna to look to. And in fact, now our gullets are shriveled because of this nothingness. I want to point out, the English says our gullets are shriveled, according to the JPS, the Jewish Publication Society's translation here. The Art Scroll suggests that the translation should say, our soul is dried out. Ve'ata nafshenu yevesha. Nefesh, in biblical Hebrew, nefesh may just mean a personhood, our physical bodies, but our bodies are dried out. But nefesh in modern Hebrew and in a lot of the homiletical looks, nefesh does mean soul. They're saying there's nothing to look to except this miraculous, perfect sustenance, and their souls are dried out. What could possibly have caused that? So Rabbi Nachmanides, or Rabbi Moses ben Nachman, who was lived in most influenced by by living his time in Greece in the early 13th century, suggests that the meaning of nafshenu yevesha, that our souls are dried, is that their physical makeup, their entire bodies, so now we're pulling on both pieces of the possible definition of nefesh, had become heated up with an intense desire for these other things, the fish, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, the garlic, and that it had dried out their soul. Nachmanides in the 1200s seems to be pulling on an idiom that even we may be familiar with, a burning desire. They had such a misplaced burning desire for something that they couldn't attain, that they couldn't see that manna was hardly nothing, that manna was everything. Manna was perfection in the form, as far as food could be. And they had such a burning desire for something else that burning in their body dried out their souls. They lost their ability to see the gifts in front of them. They lost their ability for gratitude. They lost their ability for connection and relationship. They lost their ability to see into themselves and to be their own beings and their souls. And I think that we, in our modern world, with and without the experiences of the last 15 months of COVID, can identify with this. It happens that we end up having obsessive desire, burning desires, that we get so focused on what we don't have, we blind ourselves to what we do have. We don't see the gifts in front of us. We don't see the opportunities for progress. We don't see sometimes the people around us. We start out as riffraff with burning desire that ends up infecting the entire community around us. I think that we can learn from this. We can say, what is it that I might be a little too focused on? What is it that I am using? What are my fish, cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic that I am allowing myself to get so obsessed with searching for and wanting and burning and yearning for, that I don't see the gifts that are in front of me, that I don't see the miracles in front of me, and perhaps that are literally burning my soul and drying it out. I think we can all think of something, and I hope that we could learn here to perhaps see the gift, to consume the gifts, to recognize them, and may just be a moment of gratitude for the protections that we have begun to receive, the gratitude for the ability to see family and friends in person once again, gratitude for reaching out and seeing one another. And perhaps if we take that moment of gratitude may be spiritual manna. It may be exactly what we need to take in, was always available if we're only willing to gather it. And with that, we would then re-wet our souls, revive it, and allow it to not be dried out and shriveled. So this week, I wish us all an opportunity for seeing the blessings and the gifts that we already have, the moments to say thank you for them, and may we find ways to re-satisfy our souls, to wet it, as it were, so that it is no longer shriveled. I'll say Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for joining me for a quick talk on one little piece of a very exciting Torah portion. And I'll say I don't think I caught you earlier, so I'll say Shabbat Shalom, and thank you also for joining me, to James Roth and to Cheryl Tzoff. And of course, I hope we all do indeed have a lovely Memorial Day weekend, both enjoying a little bit of time around us, and to be grateful for the gifts, and for taking the moment to memorialize those who have been lost in serving our people, serving our country. We'll take moments for both in moments to keep our souls as balanced and grateful and joyful as we can. Say Shabbat Shalom, and please join me in the cantor at 10 o'clock on our live stream. Just be easy 613 and watch live as we have our Shabbat morning service. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you soon.